Where's Fielder?
He's gone to the dogs.
Well, friends, you heard the tires on the gravel. You heard the truck come to a stop. The window rolled down. My friend Rob Giddings up in Michigan asking, where's Fielder? And his dad coming back with he's gone to the dogs. That's the cue for the Gone to the Dogs podcast. And we added the whippoorwills in there for this summertime hunting for you guys that are out there swatting skeeters and sweating buckets. But anyway, we're here once again with a great show for you today. I finally caught up with a friend that I hadn't talked to in a long time until just the other day, and he gave me a call, and we chatted for a good long while and came up with a few ideas that we want to share with you today. I do want to mention my friends out at DU Hunting Supply. They are my sponsor for this show. They provide the production on their network. Just want to thank them. If you need anything that has to do with hunting and hunting with hounds, and especially on the electronic side of things, the guys at DU Hunting Supply will treat you right. They back up everything they sell with excellent service. They'll give you the tech support you need, answer your questions. So hats off to Buddy Woodbury, Jason Doobie, and all the crew at DU Supply. Without any further ado, I want to bring to the mic my good friend and longtime friend, but haven't seen him in a while, Mr. Rusty Jones from the great state of Missouri. How you doing, Rusty?
I'm doing good, Steve. I'm doing good.
Well, that's good to hear. I like to see you young men doing well. You know, I've been blessed with a long life, and I certainly wish the same for you guys. We had a good chat the other day on the phone. I think, man, we racked up about an hour and a half there. It seems
I know.
like.
No, it was good. It was good to visit with you. I'd been wanting to catch up with you, and you know, I remember, you know, meeting you a long time, and you always kind of stuck out as a genuine person that loves, you know, hounds, any type of hounds. I mean, I know you had bear hounds, but you always felt that about you. So I always enjoyed visiting with you.
Well, the old saying, what you see is what you get. And that's what all those years, Rusty, some people may not remember this or maybe believe this, but I thought back one or several times over the years, you know, people would look at my position with the registry, you know, and I was blessed to be able to you know, run the basic people. You know, I look forward to seeing them, but I sure don't, you know, I'm got a little butterflies, you know, here. I don't want to say anything that I shouldn't say or do anything that I shouldn't do, because these people are the people I respect, and I want to put forth the best foot that I can, you know, when I'm around them. And I honestly always felt that way. And
but you probably, it was probably a tough transition for you, you know, in a way, because you started off as, you know, in West Virginia, right? Chasing them dog, you know, hunting.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And so whenever you get to that position, I could see how you wanted to take it seriously and represent the hunters, but also I mean, that's a good person to a point, you know, somebody that's hunted there
all today. But
sure.
You know, when I was hired by UKC, Fred Miller was kind of funny about he didn't want to hire coon hunters.
What about that field? Yeah, you got some questions about that field.
Yeah, he didn't want to hire coon hunters because I think he felt like they're the best, you know, as far as the business was concerned. A lot of respect for Fred, a lot of good things to say about Fred.
Right.
I think he did a great job for our sport.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, he contacted a guy down in Virginia when he was thinking about hiring me. And this guy was W.L. Davis, Willie Davis, we called him. He was a black and tan man. I've got this post-COVID tick in my voice. Just a minute, Rusty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm back. Fred had talked
We can edit that out.
Oh, yeah. That's why we have producers.
That's exactly right. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but he spoke to this guy, Willie Davis, down in Virginia. And Willie said, well, he's from West Virginia. He's a hillbilly. But he's a sophisticated hillbilly.
There's a difference.
Fred told me that later, laughing about it. But Fred and I had met at Plot Days in '73 when I came back from the service, and one thing led to another. Field rep, then went there full time and all that. But anyway, and you know that's what I remember about you, Rusty, at the events. You're a kid. And I don't use that term in a derogatory way. You're a young hunter. I met your family, and of course, everybody knew Jess Dickerson, and right. Your association with Jess, and also, lest anybody thinks this is just a mutual admiration society here today, I did right away warm to your personality and. You're a clean-cut, sharp, polite young guy that seemed to really love coon hunting, and that impressed me then, and it continues to impress me. So there you go. That's all I'm going to say about you.
No, keep going.
Lest your head gets too
no,
big.
I appreciate that, Steve. I really do. I really do.
Well, I'm sure you do, Rusty. And you told me, and I want to briefly touch on this, you've got 2 children.
I do. I got 2 girls, Elise and Lydia. Lydia is the youngest one. She'll turn 1 year old this month on the 30th. And Elise will be 4 in October. And
that's awesome.
She's at the age went swimming last night over at our neighbor's pool, and she loves doing that. And she's at a fun age. And my wife Maggie is a good mom to him, a fun mom, more strict than I am, but I might let them slide on a few things. But we're blessed to have 2 healthy girls. Very blessed and very thankful too. Absolutely.
Well, that's great, Rusty. Really good. Families first in everything we do in life, or it should be, certainly. All right. Well, I'm going to get on your case a little bit now that I've blown you up. I listened, of course, to the Fueled by Joy podcast that you did here. Well, it's been, a couple months ago, maybe month and a half, something like that.
Yeah, it was hot. I remember when we did it, it's still hot.
Well, Josh Michaelis does a great job with that podcast.
Boy, he does.
And I enjoyed him when he was with Houndsman XP. That was my old gig. Chris Powell and I started that one back 3 years ago. I
didn't know you were one of the founding fathers of that. I knew Chris was, but
yeah, Chris and I got together and started that. We were the only game in town, really, as far as coon hunting or tree hounds was concerned back in the early days.
I love his variety. I like the variety that he brings, to I enjoy that.
Yeah, absolutely. But at any rate, on that podcast, you were talking about the Youth World Championship. And you happened to place, I believe, second in the Final 4 overall in 1998, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. What dog were you hunting at that time, Rusty?
I was hunting a female called Babe that was out of Naylor, and a lippy-bred female. And she was a good dog. I think we bought her from Buck Kimbrell, WC.
Oh, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Man, yep. That strikes a chord with me for sure. Is Buck still living?
No, he passed away in 2004, I believe.
Okay.
2004, 2005.
Yeah, it seems that I recall that now. But yeah, what a great guy.
But that was a good man. We went he took us up, Dad and I, to Minnesota. took Dad and I up to Minnesota coon hunting, and went up there for a week. We treed a couple coons. One of them 47 pounds. We took some scales with us. 47 pounds, and then
Man.
a couple that were 42 pounds. And the big coon around, if you get a coon around here that weighs 20, you got something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, yeah, he was that was a good hunter.
Well, I certainly remember the Joy Youth Championship and being impressed with it from the get-go. And as I listened to the podcast you did with Josh, some of the names of the hunters that you mentioned, I certainly remember too. And there's been a lot of guys that have kind of come up through that, Scott Engel, for instance. Yeah.
Those are the older Duran Link, Bobby Wood.
Yeah, from Texas. Yeah, for sure.
There's Justin Caldwell, a bunch of them Texas boys.
Yeah, I got to know the Caldwells very well. Enjoyed that family a lot. Jimmy and Justin and their mom and dad are just great. Lee and she's gonna kill me, Debbie, his wife. If I don't remember her name, I might as well leave town. But yeah, great folks. But it's kind of a segue, I guess, of sorts, to talk about the youth championship there at the Tennis Center in Aurora, Kentucky.
I still got the video of it.
Oh, you do? I think I heard you on the podcast mention that Alan Rambo had made a video of it.
Oh, yeah. He strapped on that camera and like 3 battery packs. He's like, let's go hunt. And
did he come treat for you? Did he come treat for you out there in the woods while you were on that cast? Have you heard him tree?
He don't got to go to the woods to come treat. I mean, he could do that anywhere.
Yeah, he sounds more like a hound than a hound.
He is, yeah. But I love his passion
yes.
And man, he made that, and then he did interviews outside. That's the year Eddie Simmons won it with Marge. And
yeah, like I say, that's my first year. That was my first PKC World Championship, was when Eddie and Mad Marge won.
And I knew it was a big deal, but you're young, and you look back on it and you're like, you'd like to think, did you realize kind of what you were starting here? Did you realize how it's going to lead to?
Yeah.
And I think I did, in a certain way. But I know my dad was proud of me, and I enjoyed that, and I loved hunting. Competitive. I mean, I knew what the competitive nature of you get deeper in them casts, and you got to focus and pay attention on your dog and know the time and know the scores. All those little details are extremely important. So,
well, absolutely they are, and and I think we might dig a little deeper into that here today if we have time, because I think that's what a lot of the younger hunters that are coming on, need guidance in that area. They need, it's so simple. It's so easy, I would say, I guess, for a kid nowadays who spends most of his waking hours in front of a screen of some type,
right.
that it's so easy for them to get lost in the Garmin, as I call it.
I just check it. If you check it and then put it back in your pouch and listen to those dogs. If you think they're getting up by road, check it. Nope, they're not. You think they might. Just don't stare at that thing. Just listen to your dogs, and you will learn way more.
Well, as much as I've fooled around with equipment, used to write product reviews when I was at UKC and all that stuff, I'm not the smartest guy on the block on the Garmin because I don't use the darn thing most of the time. Mm-hmm. I'm just like you suggested. When we're out there hunting, I'm with my buddies down the White River, whatever. We're out there, I'm not watching that Garmin. I'm listening to my dog. I'm listening to the other dogs. That's where I grew up coon hunting, and that's what I enjoy,
Right. And whenever they do get treed, as I'm walking in there, then I will look and see kind of what and
Mm-hmm.
kind of play it back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
see what path. And I'm saying I'm glance at it, but I'm not staring at it.
Yeah.
But I'll glance and see, oh, they ran over here and hit this ditch, and then they came up this other little field edge, and then bumped in the timber and rolled around that little point, and then bam, tree. I kind of want to know what route they took. That way,
Mm-hmm.
whenever I recut them, I can
Yeah.
plan accordingly.
You're a
Because I
thinking man,
love
Rusty. You always have been, and I think that speaks to your success in this game. And that's what it takes. It takes a thinking guy, a guy that's looking out ahead. It's kind of like a chess player, I guess. I don't play chess. I don't
hmm
even play checkers that well. I've never been a board game guy, but anyway, I guess I'm bored with games, you might say. But anyway, but when we talk about the youth championship and all, PKC, and you alluded to this with Josh, that PKC has always gone over and above to try to recognize the kids and put on a good event for them. And if anybody thinks that youth championship is a kiddie hunt, just pull up your big boy britches and go to the finals, and you'll see, because those kids come there prepared, and they come with good dogs, and they know the rules, and it's just like a world hunt, except for the you don't have it the qualifying nights. You do that
right.
before you get there, but at any rate, it's a first class event. And
But I think we had 48 dogs. You had to whittle down, so it's not quite a pro hunt. I think there was 48 or 50 something. I'm not 100% sure.
I don't remember the numbers either.
I've still got the magazines. I remember that
for sure. Well, one of the things that I enjoyed a lot. Well, when I came aboard with PKC, Larry, when he hired me, he wanted to start a bench show program, and we did that. And he wanted to start a beagle program and a squirrel program, and we kind of got those going. They were not ever very successful, at least in my view, not in the way I judge success, at least
compared to the coon.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, he handed me the mic about the first time I was there and said, you open the hunt, you welcome the hunters, you do all the preliminaries, the announcements, and all that kind of stuff. And then when it came time to call the cast, I'd hand the mic to him, and that's kind of how we operated together. So, having a gift of gab, there's no secret about that. I've always liked to talk.
It is a gift.
Well, I don't know. Anyway, it's
maybe a curse too, but
it could,
mostly
yeah,
a gift.
Yeah. You might want to talk to Ella about that. She and her kids, they can believe how much I talk sometimes. But anyway, I liked what they were doing with the kids. They were going over to Willow Pond Restaurant and having them a banquet or a meal there for them, and someone like Mr. Roy Tramble would speak to the kids or somebody, and they would get their coats and their hats, and that's all good stuff. And I think, again, to Joy's credit, they were very much involved in that. But I thought, well, it's got to be a little more. All these parents are coming to be with their kids. They're proud of these kids. The kids have worked hard all year to be here. And I said, man, we got to do some more. We got the perfect venue here. So we came up with the idea of giving every kid at the banquet over at the restaurant a number. And when you get back to the tennis center, you go get your dog and you line up by those numbers at the back door. And then I got to thinking, man, how, what can really touch this, make this thing go, So we had this carpeted area there in front of the stage, and put George Strait on the PA system singing, "Dad, this may be the best day of my life." And
shoot, any George Strait song's good.
Yeah, he's my favorite by far. But I'm getting a little misty here on you, Rusty, as I think about this, because, man, see those kids call their name, Rusty Jones, and
Mm-hmm.
quote their earnings and their dog's name and see them walk in on that carpet and walk across in front of the stage, and mom and dad are out there, man, they're smiling ear to ear. The flashes are flying, popping everywhere. And to me, man, I said, yeah, this is how we want to recognize these kids. Now, I don't think they still do that exactly that way, but I was privileged to go and speak to the youth championship at Salem here a few years ago. And man, it was a great deal. They had a terrific meal, and
That's how you get PKC members.
Yeah, really.
Lifelong members.
Yeah.
That's making it making it a big deal and giving recognition where it needs to be.
Sure.
And make them feel important. I mean, these older guys, yeah, they've been through it a bunch and stuff. But that's what turned the corner for me personally, was placing second, and I really, really wanted to win that hunt. And
I imagine, yeah,
it didn't work out. Justin Jackson won. I was second. Scotty Lofton third, or Duran Link third. Sorry, Duran, and Scotty Lofton fourth.
Yeah.
But it was a fun hunt, a good hunt, and that's the one that because before that, man, I had struggled. But I'm hunting against Rick South and Brian Bauckham and Dennis Thornhill, Eldon Corrick, Mike Corrick.
Yeah, a lot of good hunters there to get your money, to get your qualification, right?
Oh yeah, and they didn't give it to you. I mean, you had to, and there was no use. When I first started, there was no straight use cast.
Right.
You had to compete. Then, like my third or fourth year, they Walker Days would have a use cast, and but before that, shoot, you're hunting against you're hunting in the open.
Right. Well,
but that was a good learning. I mean, it taught me a lot because those guys, they can take getting beat, but they don't really like it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I don't blame them, but it's if you beat them fair and square, then it's over. But yeah.
Well, that was a great time, and I told you I was going to take you to task on your podcast. You talked about your Joy coat jackets.
Well, I thought you forgot about that. Yeah.
No. I can't let this one go. And you were talking about that you had two of them, and you gave one of them to your buddy, and he put a plot sticker on it over the Joy.
Yeah, I got two of the jean jacket ones, and I got two of the Wick ones. Or I had two. I gave one of them to a buddy of mine, Justin Barger. And he still has this jacket, and he put his NPHA, had it sewed like like
over top of it, top the logo.
And I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Well,
but sometimes I worry about them plot hunters,
Yeah, well, you got to take this back to Josh Michaelis, because he made some kind of sideways remark about, well, if you want to get a coat, somebody's gonna have to give it to you or whatever.
He did.
And I will remind Mr. Michaelis, in 1999, the next year after you were in the Final Four, Buckeye Bud, a plot won.
John Walker, Buckeye Bud.
That's right. Now we got that out of the way. Okay, I feel somewhat vindicated.
Check that one off the list. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We were talking, and when I called you about let's get together here and do this podcast today, we started talking about a place that's near and dear to our hearts, and that being the Tennis Center there at Aurora, Kentucky, which happened to be the venue where you were honored there with your scholarships and cash and all the things that happened there. But so I got to thinking about that, and you mentioned something the other day in our conversation on the phone, about that you could draw a mental map of that tennis center that you basically, remembered every aspect of it. And
Probably to scale.
Pardon?
Probably to scale, pretty close at least.
Pretty much to scale. Well, I got to thinking about coon hunting venues, and before we get into that, and there's some really good ones around the country, and of course, maybe more than most guys. I've been involved with all these in one way or the other that I'm going to mention here, but I'm sure there's many more, and people that are listening to this probably have their favorite one that may not be on the list, but one, of course, comes to mind for me is the Orangeburg Fairgrounds in Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Man, I've never been there.
Yeah, well, you got to put that on your list because Orangeburg, I think it was back in 1966, I believe it was the first year. And I happened to be on a bus going through town, going back to college on Grand American Weekend. Didn't get to go to the hunt that year, but I did get to see just the caravans of pickups and dog boxes and everything that went along with that. So
how many dogs did they hunt a night?
Well, they usually hunt 300 or 400 dogs a night.
Yeah. Man.
It's a big event for sure.
Oh yeah.
But just the gate of the spectator traffic there, that people that come through, and most of them are coon hunters, and it's like a big county fair. And then, of course, there's the Wayne County Fairgrounds at Richmond, Indiana, where Autumn Oaks is held. Yeah.
Oh.
And
I'd never seen.
Did I lose you, Rusty?
No, I had another call come in. Sorry about that. No, getting back to Autumn Oaks, I went out there with Jess a couple of years, whenever he had Naylor. This would have been 99 and 2000, Naylor's last year. And I had never in my life seen anything quite like it. Was like a rummage sale and a coon hunt, and there was just so much going on. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And we went over to the Labor Day Classic, and then just needed to take some dogs up there. We didn't hunt in it because we were hunting in North Vernon at the PKC Labor Day Classic. And but man, that was an impressive. Just a huge deal, big deal. I'd never seen anything like it. But almost as big. I go to World Hunt after that. Later on. But man, that was crazy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that one, has a long history dating back to 1960. Started off in Greencastle, Indiana. And I've told the story of all that progression, moved around the country some. And then for the 25th anniversary, we did a homecoming back to Indiana. And it was at Jasper up the road there, or down the road, really. And we had there a couple of years, and then over to Logansport, and then settled on Richmond. And I'm proud of the fact that that I worked with the Wayne County Coon Hunters there to bring Autumn Oaks to Richmond, and it's been a great venue for them for sure. Another one is the Exchange Club Fairgrounds in Albany, Georgia. Now, the UKC Winter Classic is no longer there, but was about 88, I believe, was the first year that we were there, actually out at the community center outside of Albany. The locals pronounce that Albany, but
Albany,
Georgia. Yeah. I learned that the first year I went down.
Yeah, it would take long. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course UKC moved that to the Civic Center in Batesville, Mississippi, which is a beautiful venue. Huge.
Do they pronounce that Cyvec?
Pronounce it what?
Cyvec?
No, I think it's Civic.
Oh no,
I get you. But so, and I want to mention that a little bit in comparison to Aurora in a minute here. But then, of course, for 20 years in a row, Autumn Oaks was at the Putnam County Fairgrounds in Greencastle, Indiana. And it was
Yep.
fun for me to go back there in 2016. I was invited to judge part of the bench show. And then also I got an opportunity to judge a cast and do some interviews and things there when the 2016 UKC World Hunt was there in Greencastle. But there's a lot of history there in that town and in that fairgrounds for sure.
Absolutely.
And then a couple, one maybe a little closer to you, the Pontotoc Convention Center Fairgrounds there in Ada, Oklahoma. Do you ever go to Ada?
Yes, I've been down there. Not a ton. It's not that I don't mind hunting down there, but I like hunting down there in the fall.
Yeah.
Or when them pecans are ripe.
Yeah.
Or pecans. That's
depending on your one of them goes under the bed and the other one is
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We got a million of them, folks, and you don't want to hear any of them, I guarantee. Well, that Ada hunt, the Pete DeAndrea Memorial, it's a Treem Walker sectional. And back in the day, that was a really, really booming hunt. And I don't know what it's doing now.
They probably have 300, maybe not that many, but a bunch of dogs.
Yeah. And then one that very unique and one that I remember my first impression, and then I've thought about it many, many times, was the Freestone County Fairgrounds in Fairfield, Texas, where they held the Texas State Championship each year. Now, it's just recently moved back to Fairfield, but when I was in this little motel on the right before you go into the park, and I think it was called Ken Oaks.
Yeah, and, been in on the north side.
Yeah, and I was rooming with a guy that I've grown to love and appreciate, and hunted many nights with him from North Carolina, Pete Holt. I don't know if you ever met Pete or ever drew him out. Did you?
No, I did not.
Okay. No, He's a terrific guy, and he was very much involved in PKC in North Carolina for a number of years as probably state president, director, and all of that, but just a prince of a guy. So we had a great time there. I walked in the cabin. He must have had enough groceries for a month sitting on the kitchen table in that cabin. And, and we weren't even eating there, really. That was just for snacks. But anyway, that was my
that much. You burn a lot of calories, so you got to.
Yeah. Little did I know at that point just how many and how much sleep I'd lose too. Oh, Rusty, I want you to talk about your memories of the tennis center. Now, first of all, I'd like to say that the tennis center was a indoor clay court tennis. I don't know how many courts. Was there room for more than one court, or would that be just
there's
one
like
court?
4.
4? Yeah. And they
4 or 6. There's a bunch. It's probably 200 feet long, maybe.
Yeah.
And about 100 and something wide, 150 wide or so.
Yeah.
It was longer than it was.
Right.
Depth was more than the width. You know what I'm saying? From the door that you always walk in. Man, and I walked through that door happy, and I walked through that door no, not so happy, disappointed.
Yeah, for sure.
One in peaks and valleys. It was both.
Well, to explain to our listeners just a little bit, they would take particle board, paint it, it was gray, as I remember, and they would lay a hard floor on top of those clay courts, so you didn't see the dirt. But as all those coon hunters continually walked on that surface over the course of the week, between the dust and the cigarette smoke,
Oh yeah.
I should probably qualify for black lung benefits.
You get a bunch of nervous coon hunters around there chain smoking, especially if they're an owner sitting in there.
Especially my good friend Mr. Meeks and
Yep.
Mr. Carnegie.
Yep.
Those guys smoke like smokestacks, man. I never saw a guy smoke like that. And I wasn't used to that. That was something I had to kind of get used to.
Right.
So I took those frequent walks outside. Tell me what you remember about the tennis center.
Man, walking through that door, got a nice little open area, some vendors to the right, some food to the left. Go over there and get you a Gatorade for $1 if you're thirsty. Go on a little farther, another booth. And the PKC booth was, the stage is center on the far side. So
Right.
PKC's entry booth and everything is adjacent to that, on the left side, on the west side. And then Basil sitting over there with his, I don't know if he just brought a box of stuff and just dumped it out on the countertop and just knew that he would use it. But that man's a wizard. He's over there hustling, fixing lights. And I was never, when I won second in that youth hunt, I got me a Bandit 20-volt light.
Yeah, the box light.
That light is available at the time.
Yeah.
And I still have it. I still have it. I don't use it anymore, but it's setting up in my basement. But man, that light there that was a big deal. And then anytime I saw him at a hunt, he'd be over there. Oh, let me check. Here's an extra bulb. Because you always had to have a couple extra bulbs. You'd blow them out, here and there, especially if you needed that high side on that bulb. But he's an extremely generous person. He donated so much, to the youth lights in time and energy and everything else. That was a man that I know he gets some recognition, but it ain't as much as he deserves.
Well, of course, Basil has passed on, and was absolutely a benchmark, I would say, or an icon as far as as the PKC World Hunt was concerned, and in fact PKC in general, because he built his Bandit light. A lot of the PKC hunters carried a Bandit, and I think that had to be due to two things. Number one, Basil was just such a darn good guy, and number two, he built a good product. You were talking there before we got interrupted about Basil, so you go ahead.
No, yeah, Basil. He built an extremely good light, meticulous. Soldered all the connections. There was no. He built a really good light. This is obviously before LEDs, so, but he had a bulb with a high side and a low side.
BM32, I would think.
Yeah, you burn that high side, you're gonna run that battery down quick. But that's if you didn't have an external spotlight, on a cord, you'd use the high side on that bulb. But flipping them back and forth is hard on light bulbs on the filament inside of it. So you flip it back and forth. You're heating it up and cooling off, heating up, cooling off. So he always had bulbs. I mean, he kept a bunch of every hunter pretty much, supplied.
Oh yeah.
But just always donated stuff, donated his time. I mean, he if your light needed some anything, he'd be over there, fix it up for you in no time. I don't know how he did it with his with his spread there, but I guess at the end of the week, he just held his arm, put a box and held his arm out and just drug everything off. I don't know.
It would seem it was organized chaos for sure.
But he knows what's in there, and he knows it may take him a minute, but he'll find it.
Yeah. Those guys are kind of like that. And a little bit later, I'll tell a little story about the tennis center. But when I first got involved with Mike Kelly with K-Light, he was kind of a little bit in his repair area there. Kind of remind me a little bit of Basil, but not quite so random as Basil was. Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, what else do you remember
Uh,
about?
man, this gentleman that a lot of people will know. Their last name Burden. Probably heard of him.
Well,
Billy
if I
Burden.
hadn't heard of them, all I have to do is crack open a Pro Hound or go to the PKC website and look in the
Yeah, or
Final
dangle a RC
Fours.
Cola. Just hold an RC Cola up out in the air and Bobby will show up. But Billy Burton was man, I was young and
Yeah.
I went to man, I don't remember. It was a hunt down at the tennis center. Maybe I went down there with Jess and I was waiting on him to get in. But anyway, I walked in and Billy flags me over. He's like, "Come sit down." And he's like, "Tell me about your hunt." And I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know him, but he's such a genuine, friendly person.
Now, let's qualify here real quick. Billy is the father of Bobby and Sean.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
And this man don't know me from Adam. And but he always sat around, at the clubhouse waiting on boys to come back in,
sure.
see how they did. But he and after that, I'd see him at hunts, and he'd always flag me down. He bought me breakfast a couple times, but just he don't know a stranger. I mean, just a good, genuine person, and that's what I love about the coon. I love the camaraderie, with the fellas.
And it seemed to be particularly strong there in that area, West Kentucky and West Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. Back in the early days, people would say, "Oh, you hunt in the professional Kentucky clique." They'd say for PKC, because a lot of the guys in the early days of PKC were from Kentucky and from Tennessee. In fact, Jarvis was from North Mississippi there, lived in Memphis for years and all that. So that whole area right there was, but man, there were some great hunters, great dogs that came out of that part of the world.
Oh, yeah, with the whole, Kitty and Ferguson and Billy Bell, Avery Bell,
on and on. Mike Creasy, there's another guy from your youth program, Mike Creasy. Do you know Mike?
Yes.
Yeah. He came up through the youth ranks, I believe. And Mac Neal was his dad. And was a coon hunter.
He must have been the first one.
Yeah, way back there. Yeah, yeah. I always had a good dog, too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so anyway, the camaraderie was the thing that really stuck out to you.
I enjoyed it a lot. It's everybody was there. Mac McAllister. So we bred Babe, this female that I won second in the Youth World Hunt. We bred her to Mac's dog, Babe Stylish Banjo.
Mm-hmm.
And so I met Mac there. He was living in Osceola. And after that, I think it was raining one night down at the tennis center. We're all sitting around waiting waiting on Jess probably. And it's pouring down rain, and Max tells me he'll give me all of the money in his left pocket if I go get his truck and pull it up front. And he's like, you gotta take it before you gotta accept before you do it. And I was like, shoot, yeah, Mac, yeah, I'll take that deal. And
because you figure Mac had tons of money in every pocket, right?
Yeah, I was trying to see which pocket he had his wallet in. I was like eyeballing and maybe going to negotiate, a little bit. But I was like, if he don't want to walk through that rain, it's probably something decent. And it was like $105, I think, 104 or something. But he didn't want to walk in. I mean, it was pouring.
Oh yeah.
But just a lot of. Of course, J.C. Ellis would be there. He was a figure there for years. That's just without a doubt. but a lot of that's where every big name coon hunter was there. Guys that you might see them here and there, but everybody went to the World Hunt.
But
If you ain't at the World Hunt, you must be like gone. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing, though. For a lot of the hunters back east, or I would say from Indiana eastward and all, they had no idea that this was going on. The guys that were involved in the Purina races and would attend.
You're talking about running the UKC.
On the UKC side, I'm saying.
Right.
The UKC hunters basically had no idea that this phenomenon was going on.
They're missing out.
Yeah, and I was one of those. I mean, I was tied up in my job at UKC, so I didn't spend all my time trying to figure out what PKC was doing. I had enough to look after myself.
Oh yeah.
But at any rate, when I got there and I began to look and I see all of this, and the thing that sticks out to me the most about Aurora, and it would be a 10-day stretch for me, because we get in there, we had the super stakes, and then we had the World Hunt, and on the last 2 nights of the World Hunt, we had the Youth World. It was running concurrent with, that's the way it was when you were there, right?
That's correct, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but at any rate, the PKC staff was there for 10 days or 10 nights. Straight. No breaks.
Yeah. No.
We didn't have an event, during the day on Sunday, when Joe Brooks came along from Texas and started the Coon Hunters for Christ.
Joe. I remember that.
Yeah. And we started having church services on Sunday morning. And those were special to me, too, because I always remember I'd usually sit with Jarvis or maybe Timothy Ball.
Shoot, how can you go wrong? I mean...
Yeah, Jarvis always called me Brother Steve, and I think he did a lot of other guys that way, too. But it was always, Brother Steve, how are you today? And loved that guy. Loved him.
Absolutely, yes.
And, of course, Jarvis and I knew each other for many years. We talked, Jarvis was very active in UKC as well before he started PKC, and maybe somewhat after he started, because
he's smart. He's smart. He could, go between registries and see, maybe do something that they're not doing and implement it on his side,
oh yeah,
he was a wizard.
Definitely, and just changed the coon hunting world. There's no question about it. I mean, we could talk a whole podcast here just about Jarvis and his contributions, but
he would deserve it, right?
Oh, absolutely, and to be there for 10 days. Typically for a PKC staffer would be, depends on which way you want to go with it, get up about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, go there to the restaurant in the lodge at Ken Lake and have a buffet meal, and then go in the tennis center roughly around noon. And you were going to leave that 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, depending on. Now, usually, like the club, the Twin Lakes Coon Hunters there, we mentioned some of the guys, you mentioned on your podcast that you did, Danny Hamby and, a guy.
I threw his name out there, but there's a bunch of other ones that I didn't. Oh, yeah.
I made just a little short list of guys I particularly remember were Danny and, of course, his son Daniel, who's since passed away, and we really do send our sympathies to Danny and his family. Daniel was always there. Grant Black was one of my favorite guys. He and I always had time to talk, after the cats were out. Jimmy Russell, who was one of the few guys that was hunting an off-colored dog in PKC. He hunted red bones. And John Evans, who's gone on now, was very active. John had a dog back in the day, and I'm trying to think I know my listeners are going to know this right away, but he had a dog that was real competitive. He did a lot of winning with back in the day. But John and his son T.A. Evans, T.A. was a rock star. All the girls swooned over T.A. He was this good-looking kid, and great
Reminds
kid
me a
too.
lot of myself.
Somewhat like yourself, right, Rusty? That's right.
Oh,
That's right.
no, I know. I've hunted with TA before. Yeah,
Yeah, he's a good guy. And
he
then
is.
there's a local guy there named Duggar Martis. Always remember Duggar. He would guide right there around the tennis center somewhere. And
But all those guys and I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no.
that's why that hunt was so successful there, is because all of those guys had guides set up,
Yeah.
and to make that hunt run smoothly, because that's hard to put all those dogs in the wood in good spots. Now if you draw LBL, lane between the legs, you're probably going to be squirming, depending on where you go over there. But it's so close that sometimes that happens.
I'd rather draw LBL than Camden, Tennessee.
Right. And Bone, running that he's from Mayfield, and Coomer. Yeah, I used to go stay with Jackie Coomer. My parents, for whatever reason, let me go stay with him, and I'd walk his mail routes with him. And can you imagine Jackie Coomer as a mailman? I mean, my goodness.
Oh man,
but
I don't use. I try to keep my language on this podcast, family friendly.
Yep.
But I got to tell my one quick little story. One night, back in that day, we were running 400 dogs a night in the World Hunt. We'd have, we'd have 100 plus casts of dogs every night.
That's tough to do. Even with satellite, so it's all organized, and it's hard.
Every once in a while, I would need to judge, because we'd be short a judge or two, And of course, when Roy walked up to you and put that hand on your shoulder and started, started massaging your collarbone there a little bit.
Yeah, I don't need a weather vane to tell me which way the wind's blowing.
That's right. We're going to the woods. So, but anyway, I judged one night, but this was at the Nationals out of Florida, and I drew Jackie in my cast, and there was I can think of the names. In fact, I'm not sure. Sluggo might have been on that cast.
Oh man!
But anyway, it was a good cast. We didn't have any problems.
Yeah, but you got
some good handlers, good guys, good and jokers at the same time.
That's right.
So I come back in and turned in the card. Don't even remember who won the cast, but Roy came over later and I said, "Well, what did the guys tell you? How'd I do, Roy?" And he said, "Jackie Coomer said you judged the hillbilly hell out of them." I said, "Well, whatever that means." I said, I judged them.
I take that as a high compliment.
Yeah. And later on, Bone and Coomer used to always ask me anytime I was down that part of the country, "When you going to come down and just hunt with us? Come down and stay a while and hunt with us." But never did get to do that. But glad that those guys are still kicking. I don't think they're very active in the hunts anymore. Not certainly like they were. But
no, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I mean, I hunted with them a bunch. And when that tornado went through that area, I mean, a lot of folks were, it hit the field directly. And that was the first person. I know there's other coon hunters down there, but I still had Ronnie's number. And then I texted Jackie and Ronnie, tried to call him, didn't get him, just to see if he was all right,
Sure.
Because, man, you can't say competition coon hunting without, competition coon hunting legends without mentioning Ronnie Bone.
Well,
or Coomer for that
true.
But,
that's true. I need to get those guys on a podcast for sure. And the stories they could tell, really. I always, Bone, I'll save it, because Bone did something for my family one time just by telling me something that was very, very important to my mother. It was because his dad.
Oh, the cold.
His dad and my dad worked at the same plant there.
Coal plant, right?
It was actually a plant where they diffuse uranium for the atom bomb.
Oh.
It was at Keville, Kentucky, there near Paducah. And Ronnie called me, out of the blue and said, you need to check into this. The Atomic Energy Commission has announced some benefits for the workers that were there. And he said, you need to check into this. Of course, my dad was still living at that time, but yeah. And Ronnie's dad was one of those features at the tennis center. He was always sitting right on the inside of the door on the left as you walked in with that group of hunters that sat there.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't realize it, but his dad apparently was quite a coon hunter in his day. And really,
I mean, if he had to, if he influenced Ronnie that much, Ronnie's, man, when he shows up at a hunt, he showed up here one time up at Central at a $30 hunt, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I drew out with him, and I knew him, but he's so fun to hunt with. If he gets beat, fine. If he wins, cool.
Oh yeah.
But he knows every rule. He's an extremely good handler, probably one of the best.
Well, you
can't argue that.
A couple real quick Ronnie Bones stories, and man, you've sparked interest in me here. I'm going to have to get a hold. The other guys out there doing podcasts, stay off of Ronnie Bone. I want him.
He might be hard to get. I don't know.
No, that would be the key. Try to get him to do it would be number one.
Him and Coomer, that's who you need.
You got to get the pair, don't you?
Yes.
But real quickly, one time, Cecil, Illinois, Walker Days, guys standing around outside after most of the casts are all in, just guys standing around out there under the dusk of dawn light, talking and BSing, and a truck is pulling out of the grounds, heading back toward the gate. Somebody said, "There goes Bone." They said, "Well, where he's going?" Somebody else said, "Well, of course he's going hunting. He's training. And I think maybe it might have been you that alluded to this the other day, but he's training that dog for late rounds.
That's right.
And what a dog man.
He taught me that. Yes.
Yeah. And then another Ronnie Bone story that really wasn't pleasant at all, but just shows you the character of the guy. We had the first Grand Slam at UKC. This is before I came to PKC, and it was a money hunt for Grand Night champions only. And the first year we had it at Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and the next year we had it all the way out at Truman Lake. John Mangrum had a resort there called Bucksaw Point Marina and Resort, and I believe we held a zone hunt there one year. But we also, I think it could have been that it was a zone, but Ronnie had made this long drive from Kentucky over there and did not make it by the entry deadline. And this was UKC rules. And I think it was about 10 minutes late, and had 2 dogs that were entered in that event. Now, I mean, that's tough. And that's where they say heavy hangs a head that wears the crown. That was tough for me to say to Ronnie, buddy, I'm sorry, but I can't take your entry. He didn't kick the table over, kick chairs around, stomp, fume and fuss.
He probably just went hunting.
Yeah, but that speaks to his character, I think, and so yeah, there's another feature at Aurora that anybody that's ever there has to remember. Ronnie and Jackie Coomer for sure, and there's so many more, that we could just name. But like you said, after a while, everybody that was anybody in the world of coon hunting had to walk through those doors at the tennis center.
Yeah, guys you ain't seen since last year's World Hunt, everybody's showing up there, and maybe you draw out with them, BS with them before you go hunting, eat lunch with them, whatever. And it just kind of gets back to that camaraderie. Everybody's there to, that they want to win, obviously. They want to win, but it's just a fun hunt, fun atmosphere. And I've driven through there after that and went out of my way and drove down there and stopped. And there ain't no dogs there. There ain't no tennis, no nothing. Kind of, catch that feeling again.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So.
Well, I think one of the things that amazed me was you could walk in that tennis center at any time, day or night, and there was a crowd of people in there.
Oh, yeah.
And to describe it a little bit better, they took these picnic tables that had the benches attached to them.
Oh, yeah.
And they just put them left to right across in row after row after row from the back all the way to the front. And they'd leave like an aisle kind of in between every.
In the middle, yeah.
Yeah. So you could kind of move around.
Navigate.
So when the hunters would start coming in, they'd ease over and, turn their card in or whatever. And they'd ease over and get a cup of coffee or something and find a seat. And first thing you know, there's just groups everywhere. And
everybody's staying close. I mean, they don't have to. Everybody's down there to stay, so it's like, yeah, let's hang out for a little bit.
Yeah,
I think that was a big factor.
Yeah,
3 miles down the road, so yeah, let's hang out for a bit.
Yeah, and me liking to talk and liking to hear what the conversation. I just wander around through those tables, And little J.C. Ellis' story gets back to my roots a little bit too. And one night there, it was late. It was about time, I guess, for the cards start to come back in. Right. And some of the guys back there was a fellow, and you and I mentioned him, but I can't think of his last name. And I'm going to think it started with an M, but his name was Steve. And he was local around there, and he played harmonica. And he had a little satchel full of harmonicas. Now, this guy could play a harmonica, with him. Huh?
I said he could get busy on the harmonica.
He could get busy. There's a guy named Charlie McCoy that's one of the world-famous harmonica players that's from my area of West Virginia, right there in the neighboring county.
But if he's packing around a bag of them, then he's good.
Yeah. He's got.
If he's just carrying around one in his pocket, that'd be like, I don't know. But if he's got a whole satchel or tote of them, he's got some talent. Yeah,
right. He's got like a Garmin case, okay, and it's got like foam rubber or felt or something in there, and they're all laying and they're all different links and all this stuff. This guy could tear it up. Cool. So we got back there in the tennis center, back toward the front door, the way traffic comes in. And we were back there, and there was a guitar or two around, which I can take my hand at that. I'm certainly not a guitar player, but I like to play a little. And we were back there, and first thing you know, we're singing these songs, and we're doing Rocky Top and Take Me Home Country Roads and all this stuff. And this guy's just blowing the reeds or whatever they have in those harmonicas out of it and just having a great time. And JC, as we mentioned him before, and what a great guy, and I really miss him. JC Ellis, after we were through, I walked up toward
pioneer.
I walked up toward the front, and JC was apt to be sitting over there on Basil's table or over there around Mike Harper and the Joy table there on the left. And he got that grin on his face and on. He said, I knew the hillbilly had to come out of you sometime.
Yeah, he probably stretched back. He's a tall dude. Probably stretched back in his chair and said that. I can picture that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just wish for every coon hunter across the United States that they could have experienced Aurora, Kentucky at World Hunt Super Stakes Youth Championship time. walk in that tennis center, take the tour around, see the lady there at the first, as you go in, doing the airbrush shirts. Walk on up a ways up toward the far right up there. Mike Kelly had his K-Light stuff up there. Of course, you mentioned Basil and Joy on the left, and a lot of other vendors in between. And I'm leaving some out, I know. But, we had a little mezzanine area upstairs to the left that we could go.
I would never invite you up there.
Okay, well, you didn't get in trouble. That's why we never had to invite you.
I try not to.
Oh, man. I was up there one time, and I don't remember what I was doing.
Probably with Coomer.
No, but I was up there doing something, and Larry asked for me. He wanted to tell me something, whatever. I don't know. Anyway, he sent Mike Craney, who worked in the PKC office, up to get me. And Mike, he had this frown on his face, and he said, "Larry wants you downstairs right now." Well, I said, "Oh man, this sounds important."
I hope he got breakfast ready. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, Larry later laughed. He said, "Man, you came tearing down that steps and up to the desk," and he said, "I thought you were going to hit me." And I said, "Well, I'm not used to somebody talking
get myself down here."
Yeah. And I said, "Well, number one, they said the boss wanted me, so that's important enough. But I wasn't used to being addressed that way."
Right.
Oh, we had a lot of laughs.
Roy Tramble, that's another name.
Oh,
his wife. I'll talk about Roy here in a minute. That is a man that you won't find. Maybe you find somebody, in your life as good as him, but I don't see how you can find anybody better. But his wife, Eula Bell, I've got some wind slips that she had the most beautiful handwriting.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cursive.
Yeah.
She'd fill out all those wind slips and they'd be just written perfectly. I miss her. I miss Roy too.
Yeah.
That was a good man, and he kept, like you were saying earlier, he'd go over there and rub on your shoulder a little bit. You knew you knew where this is going. But
yeah, he was the best ever.
Running. He was the right hand, maybe both hands. I mean, he was.
He was the guy that communicated with the hunters. Roger Dale was the guy that did the numbers and kept the numbers straight, knew what the payouts
were
going to be.
Go to old Roy.
Anything related to the hunt, Roy, that was his wheelhouse, and
he was gifted at it.
He absolutely was, and the very best ever. And I've worked with a few, very best ever at working a crowd to get judges. Yep. I mean, people just would not say no to Roy.
No, he's such a genuine person. It's hard to. It's like your grandpa,
Yeah.
Coming up and asking you for something or asking you to help him, till the garden, and you're like, I might be busy, but I can probably do it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Guys would take off a week from work, take their vacation, and come to the tennis center, not to hunt their dog, but just to judge for Mr. Roy. I mean, he had an amazing influence in the hunting community. One of the most fun times that I've had over the years, and on the podcast I did with Larry Meeks, and what a great guy to work for, by the way.
Absolutely.
We talked about he and Roy coming up and hunting with me in Michigan. And that was great, because Roy at that time wasn't getting around really well and all. So I had some nice, easy spots, to go, and just had a great time. And
take him to them country club spots.
Yeah. Well, I think I took you and Jess to a pretty decent spot on a late round up there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hunting that.
That's another man I want to mention. I've seen Jess a bunch, but he, what a good, coon hunting friend, went out of his way to be, good to me whenever he did. I mean, he didn't really have to,
Well,
but he
nobody
wanted
thinks
to pass
about
it along.
Jess without thinking about you, Rusty, and vice versa. You guys were kind of joined at the hip there for a lot of years.
And I loved it. I love hunting with him, but I love talking to him about anything in life. I mean, he's been like I mean, I love my dad. He introduced me to the sport and everything. But Jess was, just kind of that somebody different person that you can, kind of connect with. And, but he didn't have to be as good to me as he was and still is. But we, it gets deeper than coon hunting. You meet friends hunting and then, kind of change, you just get a little bit deeper in talking about life stuff. He always asks me about the girls. If he's here, he's reading books to Elise, and and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's fun and enjoyable.
Sure.
I'm thankful for it.
Well,
hopefully I get to a point where I can influence somebody like he influenced me. That's my goal.
There you go. Pay it forward, Rusty.
That's right.
That's what we have to do. Well, Jess, I will say, was very fortunate to have a guy like you there, because at my age now, I do have a couple of guys that are helping me tremendously right now with my dogs, in trying to start a couple young dogs that I just couldn't give them a chance. And they're helping me. That's Mark Miller up in North Carolina, and Keston, I always want to call him 4C, and that's not his last name. But Keston Jesse, it's an unusual name.
Uh-huh.
But those guys are really helping me tremendously with a couple of young dogs right now and keeping me in the loop and sending me videos, from their hunts out there, showing me what the dogs are doing and all that stuff. It's so important to be able to have a friend like that. And I'm sure that's the way Jess regarded you back in the day, that he had more than one good dog to hunt. And you've picked up the slack big time,
A whole kill full of dogs.
Sure.
And I still bounce stuff off him all the time. I talk to him every other day, seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not every day. Some days it's every day, but just maybe it's for a few minutes here and there. Maybe it's for an hour. I don't know. But he's got so much knowledge, him and my dad too. But they got so much knowledge, and Jess and I, we like the same style of dogs because he pretty much, trained me.
Right.
But if I'm doing something that he wouldn't do, he'll just tell you, he's like, well, I don't think I'd do that. And I'm like, shoot, but he's just so honest and straightforward. And he's like, oh, you're probably all right, but I just wouldn't do it like that. And I'm like, oh man, Jess wouldn't do it like this. But he doesn't. It's not like he's saying. I mean, I lean on him for a lot of it, advice, tips, tricks, stuff like that.
Sure, absolutely.
If I got a dog that's not feeling right, I'll call Jess, and then take him to the vet.
I got you. Well, I got a question for you. Was Naylor already too deep into retirement when you started hunting with Jess, or did you get to hunt with Naylor?
No, I never did get to hunt with Naylor. I spent a lot of days, because Jess did not let him out of his sight.
Yeah.
Like we'd go to Autumn Oaks or anywhere. I never, to be honest with you, I never did get to see him hunt. He just couldn't afford to hunt him. $500 stud fees, breeding 3 females a week, But we traveled a lot together, and Naylor was like, oh, Jess did not let him out of his sight. There's a hunt in Aurora, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the day that Naylor died. And I was talking to Jess on the phone, and he pulled into his driveway, and he said he kept Naylor in a kennel, and then he put him out on a run during the day so he could get some exercise. This is in August. I don't remember the exact date, but it's sometime in August. And I'm talking to him on the phone, and he pulls in his drive, and he said, Naylor's gone. And I was like, oh, shoot, man. I was like, just go find your dog, and I'll holler at you later. Click, hang up. And then his wife, about 3 hours later, calls me. Leanne never calls. I mean, I know Leanne. She's a good woman. Obviously, she puts up with Jess, so she's got to be one. But she, I'll talk to her whenever I'm staying down there at the house. So she never calls, and she called, and my heart just sunk because I knew I could see, what it. And she told me Naylor had gotten loose, and some guys building some townhouses or something across the street heard him treed, and he was treed, I think, with a house cat. Maybe I don't know, treed with something. And this is a hot, like it is right now, 98 degrees,
Right.
and got too hot. And man, I went ahead and went down to that hunt. I didn't talk to Jess. We were supposed to ride down there together, but I know he was just sick. Whenever that happened, it's one of them freak deals. But I'm thankful that X came right along and kind of brought him up out of that low and brought him back to a high. Him taking X and winning the world hunt. Same year I got treated in that prison.
That's a reference to the podcast, folks, that you need to check out, and Fueled by Joy. It's titled Treat in a Prison. Hey, Rusty, you know what, buddy? We have eaten up our time today. And if I didn't have an appointment that I've got to go to, or I'm going to get my head skinned, we're going to have to shut this thing down. Pardon?
I said I might need my head scanned too.
Well, scanned? Yeah, well, I need mine scanned. It's already skinned. I don't have any hair up there.
Don't let me hold you up, buddy.
No, Rusty, but seriously, I've really enjoyed catching up with you today.
And, me too.
I hope we painted a picture for those that weren't fortunate enough to go there to Aurora and enjoy those great days at the tennis center. I've been to Salem, Illinois, since they've moved the World Hunt there, and it's a good time. There's no doubt about it. But I just don't think, and at least in my experience, there's ever been a place quite like that tennis center. Do you?
It set the bar so high, Steve. It really did, and it's just the way that it is. Yeah, set the bar high and just different. It's not bad, but it's just different. Yeah.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for this week's podcast. In closing, I'd like to remember the folks in eastern Kentucky and southwest Virginia and parts of southwest Virginia that have been flooded. Such devastation and heartbreak for those folks, I'm sure. I pray that you would keep them in your prayers. If there's any way you can help by contributing to the organizations that are helping those people in this terrible time, I hope that you'll do that. Well, as I said, it's time to wrap it up for one more week. If someone asks you, where's Steve Fielder, you tell them he's gone to the dogs.